It seems like it, doesn't it?
Yeah. What do we make of? He's obviously annoyed by the situation, annoyed that he has to talk about it. Do any of us believe we will see 23 in uniform again this season?
I don't know. Last year, he missed those 6 games late in the season with a shoulder injury, and then comes back week 16, gets suspended for week 17, plays week 18, then has the really nice interception against the Cowboys in the playoffs. We're going into week 18, and he still hasn't played. His practice participation trended downward last week from limited to out. Here's Matt LaFleur saying he's dealing with swelling in his knee and declining to talk about a potential differing in opinion between the staff and Jaire with regards to whether he can play or not. Gun to my head, I'd say we don't see him again this season. Do we see him again in a Packers uniform is the big question. I don't know the answer to that.
My suspicion is the answer to that question is no, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But how have the Packers, in your estimation, been able to sustain without him? Because they've gotten used to not having Jaire out there.
Yeah, it's been fine against teams that it should be fine against. And, Doug, and you and I talked on my show last night, about how the DBs held up against the Seahawks, who are a really good passing game, but they were aided by the pass rush. And the pass rush and the coverage, as we all know, has to work in tandem. And against Seattle, the pass rush got home, made the DBs' jobs a lot easier, but they also played well against the passing offense that entered that game third in the league in passing yards per game. Against the Lions and the Vikings in the last month, it's been terrible. And that's also because the pass rush has been non-existent in getting home to Jared Goff and Sam Darnold. So as I sit here today on Tuesday, December 31st at 7:06 a.m. Central Time, I can't say that I'm confident a starting DB group with Eric Stokes, Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon playing corner can stop anybody. They're playing in the playoffs. Yeah, I just don't think they can. You're going to play most likely A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith with Jalen Hurts throwing them the ball behind that offensive line in the first round. Packers are going to have to score maybe 40 to win.
Yeah, if you don't get home against the Vikings offensive line, good luck against Philadelphia's, right? I mean, that
exactly.
You can send 6 guys. I still think they have the advantage on the other side of the ball. You know what I found most illuminating about listening to Matt yesterday, and maybe you guys talked about it last night? I don't remember who asked the question about Edgerrin Cooper's play, and how he's splashing and making these great plays. And I thought it was really illuminating that Matt was very quick to look at the other side, that it's not all great things that Edgerrin Cooper's doing, that there are examples of plays that he's messed up. He's still learning. He knows the ball of clay he's got there with Edgerrin Cooper. It almost felt like he doesn't want everybody to pat him on his back too hard just yet, because the splash plays are great. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, he's still making some mistakes, and he still has to get better.
Yeah, and I'd have to go back and watch the film to see what exactly those mistakes were. But, there are some hidden plays that maybe we don't recognize. For example, I'm going to go all the way back to week 1 against the Eagles, ironically, when Saquon Barkley has a walk-in touchdown from 11 yards out. Doesn't get touched through, I think it was the A-gap on the right side. Quay Walker, it might have been the B-gap. Quay Walker was in the A-gap, and everyone thinks, okay, Quay Walker's in the wrong. He's in the wrong position since he's the closest guy to the play. And it's always dangerous thinking that, because we come to find out it's Edgerrin Cooper lined up in the wrong spot before the snap. So that's why there was nobody there when Quay shot the gap. So that was week 1. This is week 17. Matter of fact is he's a rookie. He's not playing middle linebacker. He's playing weak side linebacker. He just missed 3 weeks not long ago. There's a lot on his plate. They're not, giving him everything yet, because those are 3 completely different positions in the NFL on that second level of the defense. And like I said, he is just a rookie, immensely talented. He's already earned a second contract with this team, in my opinion. He's going to be a stud here for years to come. But there's no shame in saying he doesn't know everything yet, and he's still making mistakes.
Is part of, I don't know if the word is fawning. I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, but you look at the rest of the Packers draft class from this year, and I can't judge a draft class until a couple of years in, but whether it's Jordan Morgan and his injuries, whether it's Marshawn Lloyd and his injuries, Evan Williams, I think, has been very good when he's been out there, but he's had some injuries. in recent weeks as well. This hasn't been a splashy outside of those splash plays from Evan Williams and outside of Edgerrin Cooper. This hasn't been a splashy draft class. Maybe people are just trying to glom onto something that, indicates that this could be a good draft class because they haven't gotten really anything out of Jordan Morgan this year because he's been hurt most of the year.
Right, and you can't really do anything about injuries. Javon Bullard has been solid, I think, just from hearing Jeff Hafley, fawn over him for most of the year. He was not solid on Sunday in Minnesota. I would probably attribute that in part, at least, to, yes, not as good as guys like Jordan Addison, but also it's his first game back in a couple weeks, and he's playing a different position than he practiced at all week because he practices at nickel. He plays the nickel, a completely different position than safety. Then Zane Anderson goes down with a concussion, and Bullard has to move back to safety. So it's tough to put that on a rookie's plate. That being said, I would say he's been a net plus this season. Javon Bullard, Edgerrin Cooper, obviously, but injuries, you can't really do anything about it. So like you said, Doug, we got to wait a couple years to, see if this draft class pans out. You would have said, oh, Sean Ryan bust because he was suspended the first 6 or the last 6 games of his rookie season for violating the league's policy on performance-enhancing substances. Now he's their full-time starting right guard.
Yep.
So you say, okay, we probably hit on that one. And then the start of Tucker Kraft's rookie season, you're like, well, third-round curse still exists. But then he comes on after Luke Musgrave's lacerated kidney, and Tucker Kraft's emerged as your number 1 tight end for the future this season. So wait is what I'm saying. And at least, for glass half full look here for Packer fans, it's not because of lack of performance, it's because of injuries. So if you get these guys healthy, we'll get a better look at what they really are in Lloyd and Jordan Morgan.
Wait, we're sports fans. We have no interest in waiting. Instant
There's
reaction.
no patience.
Exactly. I found it interesting listening to some of the national talking heads yesterday, reacting to what they saw on Sunday's game. In particular, Dan Orlovsky. I don't know if we saw his comments on Jordan Love's performance and how he feels like Jordan's playing a little too risk averse. The narrative of all the interceptions halfway through the year maybe got into his head, and maybe the coaches are preaching it as well, and that he needs to be a little bit more risk-taking, especially with his legs. He thought with the way teams are defending Green Bay with 2 safeties deep, the middle of the field's open. There were opportunities for Love to take off and run, and maybe he's not quite willing or comfortable doing it. Do you sense any of Love's style of play changing, maybe with the 11 picks early becoming such a talker about the way he's playing?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if I've sensed it. The head coach has said it. I remember when we sat down with him, Doug, a couple weeks ago for either our 3rd or 4th, I think it was our 4th podcast recording for the Matt LaFleur podcast. I asked him what he attributed that stretch of clean play to, and clean play meaning no interceptions. He hasn't had any in his last 6 games, and he had 11 in his first 8, and Matt LaFleur said he's being more conservative. And that's not to say he's not taking chances. He's still pushing the envelope at times. You didn't see it as much on Sunday because, like you said, the Vikings were really trying to keep everything in front and playing loose on the back end, LaFleur said, and also they didn't have Christian Watson. They're one guy who can really stretch a defense. But I would absolutely say he's changed his style of play. He's not taking as many chances. He's being more conservative. And I don't necessarily think that should come with a negative connotation. Protecting the ball is always a good thing. But in a game like that, where you have to outscore people and you're not playing the 49ers or the Dolphins or the Saints or teams that you can, rely on your defense to beat, Jordan Love might need to take a couple more shots in these shootout type games, which is probably every game the Packers play in the playoffs, whether it's 1 game, 2 games, or 3 games, or 4. Maybe they play 5.
Maybe
that's not possible.
I'll take 5. I'll sign up for 5.
Yeah. Well, there could be 5 games left, including the Bears game on Sunday.
Yeah. That's what I meant.
I know that players and coaches will shy away from this question because that's the nature of them, because they've got the Bears coming up. That having been said, and you don't want to assume anything, but let's say the Packers do wind up in the wild card round in Philadelphia. That's kind of the way that it's trending. Can they take anything, in your opinion, from week 1 and apply it to the wild card round that would give you some confidence that they can do in the wild card round what they weren't able to do in Sao Paulo?
Well, you can say, okay, we were down 5, and if Keyshawn Nixon hadn't taken back that kick return from 8 yards deep in the end zone, we would have had 14 more yards of field position because he returned it to the 16. They would have gotten it at the 30. Then Jordan Love hits Jaden Reed down the left sideline. Now you say, well, if Braden Narvison had made his kick earlier in the game, we're only down 2 instead of down 5. Now we have Brandon McManus, who would probably make whatever kick Braden Narvison missed. I forget if it was from 45 or 43 yards. And then the Packers only need probably one more completion to get into Brandon McManus' field goal range for the win. And if Jordan Love doesn't have to drop back for a Hail Mary, he probably doesn't get hurt on that play. So we can play a lot of what ifs. Listen, I don't think you can take too much. It's week 1 to week 19. It'll probably be. Teams change so much, and I'm sure the Eagles have changed a lot. The fact of the matter is, if you can't stop Saquon Barkley, you're probably not winning that game. The Packers' run defense has been the strength of their defense this year.
Mm-hmm.
Ironically enough, based on what we've seen in the past 5 years I've been here. So, no, I don't think you can draw too much, but I think you can say, okay, it was an unscouted look game in week 1 on a crummy surface, and we hung in there. And that's what the Packers can take a silver lining in for many of these teams they play. But at the end of the day, like we talked about yesterday, Doug, there's no more silver linings or moral victories. The next game they lose by 2 points because of self-inflicted wounds will be their last game, and there will be no more hoping for another chance.
We're obviously almost 2 weeks away from the wild card weekend. We don't know the status of the injured guys and who will be available. But if it's you and you could pick one of the 3 guys that missed Sunday, Evan Williams, Quay Walker, and Christian Watson. I'm throwing Jaire out because I don't think we expect him to play. If only one of those 3 guys is available for Philadelphia, if that's the opponent, in your mind, who's the one guy the Packers must have back for that game?
Christian Watson. There's no question about it. Just because of how he stretches the field, whether he gets the ball or not, defenses have to account for it. And then he's really good as a blocker as well. Just adds a different element that another receiver doesn't bring. I was thinking Evan Williams because, he's your starting safety, obviously. So it gives you more flexibility, and you don't have to have Eric Stokes and Carrington Valentine on the field at the same time. You can pick which one of those guys you want. Put Keyshawn Nixon at the other outside corner spot. Put Javon Bullard at the nickel where he's used to playing instead of having to play Bullard out of position. So I'd go Evan Williams at close 2, but Christian Watson number 1 for sure.
In terms of what the Packers need to accomplish against the Bears, it's a game that they should win, obviously. It's a game, the Bears are just reeling at this point of the season, and maybe they've cashed it in. What do the Packers need to accomplish against Chicago?
I think just play a clean game and, get out of there with some good vibes to maybe get some momentum back, get some confidence back. And maybe the Packers don't need that. Maybe that's just an outside thing. But entering the postseason on a down note against these elite teams is one thing. If you turn in a stinker and pull out another 1-point win against the Bears or even lose, which I'm not going to predict until the Packers lose to the Bears. They've never lost to the Bears when I've been covering this team. It's 11
it's the
straight.
Schneidman
Appreciate that, Matt. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Then it's even more of a concern. It's okay, we can't beat the good teams, and we're going into the postseason off our first loss against a bad team. So then you start asking all sorts of questions. So I think just to take care of business, don't let anything trip you up sort of game, a comfortable win maintains the status quo. If you win by 30, I don't think that makes you feel any better about your chances in the playoffs, but at least it doesn't make you feel any worse. And
fair.
There's always some value in extending that winning streak to 12 games.
What is the schedule for the Matt Schneidman show this week? Any holiday days off, or will we hear you all week?
Doug, do we have confirmation that we are not doing shows today or tomorrow?
We are not doing shows today or tomorrow. The football feast is on Thursday, and then we'll be back with the Matt. Well, you'll be back with Hunter with the Matt Schneidman show coming up on Friday night.
Fantastic.